Today we've got 2 FOs, 2 whips, and some exciting personal news at the end if you'd like to stick around. Welcome back to my knitting channel. My name is Nadine and you can find me at yourknittingbestie on Instagram, Ravelry, and here on YouTube. On this channel you can expect to hear me talking about my obsession with knitting and what it's like being a knitter in a warmer climate, because I'm based here in Brisbane, Australia. So today's episode is a bit of an update on where I'm at with all of my projects. I've actually finished 2 of them and I have 2 whips, one which is at a very early stage and one which is about halfway through. And then at the end, I'm really keen to share some personal news with you if you'd like to hang around for that. As always, there are chapters below if you'd like to move ahead, and all of the information on my projects, yarns, all the rest of that will be down in the description box below. So my first finished object is the one that I'm wearing, which is the vest number 1 by My Favourite Things Knitwear. And you've probably heard me mention this before if you've watched my podcast before. So I made the size large and I decided to use Drops Air in the colour Pearl Grey. And I ordered 5 balls based on the yarn indicated in the pattern, the yardage, but I actually ended up only using just under 4 balls. So I've got 1 whole ball and a little bit of 1 left. So I'll be able to use that, I think, for something fun, just a little project. And I think the last time we spoke, gosh, I'm casting my mind back. I think the last time we spoke, I had just joined at the underarms and I was planning on going back and doing the ribbing at the neckline and here at the arms before going back and finishing the body, just so that there wasn't too much extra to do once I finished the body and I could put it on straight away. So I did actually end up following that process. So I went up and did the folded collar, which was totally fine. I haven't had any problems with it being too loose or anything like that. I think it fits quite well. And it also isn't too tight, which is, you know, something that you can run into if you're binding off too tight when you're doing a folded collar here. The arms I initially thought were a bit too deep, but I think that's actually okay in the final object. So I should say this is unblocked. I wanted to put it on for the first time when I was doing the B-roll for it just before, which I'll pop up on screen. So I'm very happy with how it's looking at the moment. I think it looks pretty cool. I like the kind of boxy cropped silhouette. I think that's very modern and I can see it going with a whole heap of things in my wardrobe. And I was particularly excited to put it together with this white top and the light denim jeans because I think that's such a classic look with a vest. I do wonder though if perhaps I should find a shirt with slightly longer sleeves, because I think this length kind of just sits a little awkwardly under the overhang of the vest. Kind of looks like I've got almost 2 sets of wings coming off my shoulders, like a dragonfly or something like that. But I don't know, this is my first ever vest, so I haven't styled it before, and I'm sure I'll do a little bit of experimentation and figure out how it's supposed to look. And it could be the case also that this isn't supposed to hang out or hang over the shoulders as much. It very much could be because I think my gauge was a little bit off. I think this is a 17 stitch gauge and I ended up going with 16 stitches. So it could be that that little bit of extra there is just what's making it a little bit bigger than it should be. And maybe if I was perfectly on gauge, it would be sitting kind of more neatly on top of my shoulders. But we'll see how it looks after I've blocked it. And I'll put up some more footage of me wearing the blocked object. And we'll see if there are any differences in how it fits post-blocking. Okay, so this is what it looks like blocked. I think I gained a little bit in length and possibly a little bit in width, but I'm really happy that the shoulders didn't come too far off, the edge of the shoulder. So I think it's overall just really added to the drape of the project. And yeah, I think it's going to be a real staple in my wardrobe going forward, and I cannot wait to style it. It was pretty smooth sailing with the knitting process the whole way through. The only issue I had actually was with the yarn, particularly when I was doing the bind off at the edges of the sleeves here and the bottom of the hem. Because I did a tubular bind off, which means you have that really long tail, right? And you're constantly working that yarn back and forth through a whole bunch of different stitches so that that yarn gets a lot of friction. And the drops air, I find, is very sticky. The fibers like to kind of grip together and they almost felt together with a little bit of working. So when I was weaving the ends through for the tubular bind off, I found that particularly when I was kind of weaving it sideways, uh, the two stitches would kind of felt together, and I would have to get a do some delicate work with some scissors or kind of just pulling it apart to break the connection between the two bits of yarn. Otherwise, they would stick together and look a bit odd in the bind off. And that happened on nearly every single stitch along the bind off. So I found that bind off took way longer and it was quite frustrating at times when you're constantly trying to snip that little bit of caught yarn so that it looks the way it's supposed to. But that was the only kind of friction point I found with this garment. I really enjoyed how quick it was to knit. This felt like it went up so quickly. I'll put on the screen how long this project took in total. And that was with picking up other projects and doing little bit of multitasking. So I'm sure if I'd focused in on this garment, I could have had it done probably in a couple weeks. So that is definitely something that draws me to the idea of making vests in the future. Okay, so moving along to my next finished object then. So this is the Minou Scarf. Oh, well, it's really the Minou headband. And if you watched one of my last episodes, you would know that I knit this in Lionbrand Feels like Alpaca in the colour silver. And yeah, I really liked that yarn for this project. I think it looks beautiful. And I was so happy to try the half fisherman's rib. Thank you so much to everyone who left me encouraging comments about trying half fisherman's rib. I completely agree that it was not as big a deal as I thought it would be. And it was not quite straightforward to get the hang of after a couple rows. So I'm very pleased with how this has turned out. And because, of course, my brother-in-law tries on all of my head knitted objects, I, of course, tied this on him with a bit of a bow when he popped over with my sister the other day, and he looked beautiful. So I'm very keen to send this off to my cousin in Canada, and I'm sure it will look just gorgeous on her. It also occurred to me that you could probably use this as like a tiny dainty little scarf, or if you have it long enough, you could wrap it a couple of times around your neck and have it in a knot at the front, and maybe that would look nice as well. But I really don't know if it would do much for you from the perspective of warmth, of practicality. So maybe you would go for the bigger shawl or scarf size if you were looking for some warmth. So in terms of modifications, I have to say I was quite cheeky and I didn't do a gauge swatch for this project. I just kind of did the first bit of the pattern with a couple yarns and figured out which one I liked the feel of. And I liked the width of this one too, so I just kind of went with it. I think from memory I did 2 extra repeats of the chart for the headband than was called for because I wanted to make it a little bit longer to have slightly longer ends. And I'm pretty happy with the length that this finished up at. I kind of as I was knitting it, was trying it on around my head to see approximately how it might finish. And that's kind of how I judged the length. So if you like the look of this when it's tied up and you like this length, this is, where is it? Oh yeah, so this is 83 centimeters long if you're looking for the same result. So yeah, a really nice quick project. This was done honestly in a couple of evenings and not even long knitting sessions at that. So if you have a gift that you'd like to get done, or you have just a little bit of leftover yarn and you're just feeling a bit of an accessory for yourself, I highly recommend it. So a very nice pattern indeed, and a bit of a push out of my comfort zone because it was an exclusively charted pattern. But yeah, I really enjoyed it and I'm looking forward to making some more throughout my knitting career. Okay, so that's it for the FOs, and now we're moving along to the whips. And my first one is one that I mentioned in my previous favorite baby yarns video. So I posted that video because I had the intention of making a baby blanket for some close friends for their first child, which is due in, I think, July. So it'll be in the cooler months here in Brisbane, which is wonderful news for a knitter. So I went off and I did my research on different types of baby yarn that I might like to try. And I ended up choosing the Fiddlesticks Superb 8, which is an 8-ply or DK yarn, 100% anti-pilling acrylic. And I chose the color, what is it? Yes, that's right. I chose the color grey brown, which is this color here. I was originally going to go with a bit of a camel color, but after having a chat with Mum-to-be, she said that her nursery theme is probably going to be grey and black. So after having finished my vest number 1 and my Minou Scarf in light grey, I just couldn't bring myself to do another grey project, but I thought I would go for a bit of a middle ground with the grey-brown, which I think will still go nicely with a black and grey theme and just give it a little bit of warmth perhaps. And I did get sign off on the colour as well, so thankfully she's happy with this one. So the next big question was, of course, what pattern am I going to use? And there are some wonderful baby blanket patterns around. So it was very hard to kind of narrow this down, and I've been chewing it over in my mind for a couple of weeks now. But I think what I've decided to do, because I kind of thought that a baby blanket is a wonderful opportunity to freehand your own pattern, because it's just a big square, right? Or a rectangle. So, there's no complicated increases or decreases that you have to worry about when making a standard baby blanket. So I thought it would be cool to find some inspiration from, things that I've seen around in the Knitterverse, or I had a flick through one of my books which has the different, stitch combinations in it. And I thought if you could find any sort of reversible stitch pattern that you like the look of, then you could use that to make a baby blanket. So I ended up going with a pattern that I've seen around the place a whole lot, which is the kind of 4 stitches of garter stitch, or 2 garter bumps, and then 4 rows of 1x1 ribbing with maybe a garter border. And I knit this up in my swatch, so before making the final decision, I wanted to get a feel for the yarn and see if that stitch pattern looked nice in that yarn. So I just last night on the couch in front of a movie, I was able to knit up this little swatch here. And as you can see, this is the start here. I went through and I changed a couple things each row. So along here, I kind of changed something different in each row to get a feel for what I liked. Because if you have a look here, initially I thought maybe I could do the ribbing right to the end, and I wanted a nice neat edge, so I've slipped the first stitch of every row purlwise, and then I'm knitting the last stitch of every row to give it that nice sort of braided look. But when you're doing the ribbing kind of pulls together, of course, as opposed to the garter stitch, which is nice and stiff. So you get this kind of inconsistency along the side here, which wasn't quite what I was looking for. I was hoping for a bit of a neater edge. So I decided then to switch to doing a solid garter row at the beginning and at the end of every row. And I really like the look of that better. It gives much more of a neat edge, as you can see there. So then it was just a matter of figuring out what order I liked the ribbing to go in, whether I liked the row of knits to be right up against the garter border, or if it's better to have a purl stitch and then the knit stitch. And I think I'm going to go with a purl stitch and then a knit stitch in the ribbing, just because it makes it look a little bit neater. So you can see in the final row, the final row up here, that's what I did. And I think that just looks neater. So at the end of doing my swatch, I think I've settled on the overall kind of pattern for my blanket. But yeah, so I have blocked this overnight. I'm pretty happy with the drape. I was a little bit worried at first because it seemed to, well, it just didn't seem to flow nicely. The garment didn't flow nicely at first, but as with most things, it has changed after blocking. So yeah, really happy with how that's looking. It is, I would say, fairly soft. It's not, it's not the most soft, luxurious yarn you've ever seen, but as I mentioned in my baby yarns video, I chose this yarn because I think that the parents might end up machine washing this, and I think it would be more convenient for them to be able to machine wash this. So that is what I decided to go with. And also, I found that with my knitted gifts, where I've used kind of a luxury yarn, sometimes the recipients are almost too scared to use the object because they don't want to ruin it. And I kind of hope that if I give them this blanket using this yarn, I can tell them, look, you can do your worst. Treat it however you like and it will be fine. And if it frays or if there's a hole or something, just let me know and I can patch it up for you. So I'm hoping that that will mean that they get even more use out of this object. In terms of quality of the yarn, I'm happy with the hand feel of this yarn as I'm making up the project. It doesn't have that kind of squeaky feel that some acrylic yarns can have. Although I have to say, when I first picked up this ball and took the little slip cover off, the first thing I saw was a knot in the yarn. And you can actually see that because I didn't bother cutting it out for my swatch. You can see it down the bottom here. Overall, I'm quite happy with the yarn so far, particularly for the price point, because I got this for $7 for 100 grams. So you really can't go past that sort of value. That is quite good, I think. So I ended up getting 4 100-gram balls, so 400 grams overall. And I thought I would try a new supplier. So this is from Craft to You. And they actually sent me the yarn in a, what do you call it? Vacuum sealed bag, which I thought was so smart and also very handy for me to use to store my yarn. So I'll give you a quick look and I'll stop talking so that I can cut out the noise from the crinkling if I need to. So in terms of the sizing for the blanket that I'll make, I think I'll do a quick Google around to have a look at the dimensions from some commercial baby blankets that are popular and just make a call based on what seems to be a reasonable size. So yeah, that's my first whip, and I have got a deadline because I would like to have this ready for the baby shower, which is coming up fairly soon. Okay, so on to my last whip. And this is one that you've seen before, and I'm only mentioning it because it is intertwined with my personal update. As I'm sure some of you have spotted through the video, I got engaged. And I'm very excited. I think my partner did an excellent job on the ring. He actually had no help from me whatsoever. He designed it himself, and I think he did a wonderful job. Love it. Although I am very nervous to have such an expensive piece of jewellery. But anyway, it's a hilarious story because we had just gotten ready to go out for a nice dinner, and I was sitting on the couch with my knitting, just knitting away, waiting for him to finish getting ready so that we could head off. And he wandered out, and the first thing he said was, "Sweetheart, do you think you could put down your knitting for a second?" Because I was knitting on this sock. And I was like, yes, of course, put down my knitting. And he proposed. So yeah, I guess I have a wedding to plan, which is very exciting. And I'm very keen to get started on that. We're both pretty kind of casual, breezy people, so I doubt it'll be anything huge. But it'll be nice to formalize the relationship that we've had for more than 5 years now. So I'm very, very pleased and happy that he has such exceptional taste in rings and in women. Anyway, it was a special project, and I told Michael that he has given this project a promotion because it went from being just a practice sock to a very special sock indeed. And I ended up doing this yellow stripe. So I started just here, and that was the exact stitch I was on when he proposed. And this yellow thread that I used is just the beginning yarn that they have at the start of the perfect yarn balls. So I had it cut off and kind of in my scraps bucket, and I just grabbed it out and knit it until it ran out, so that I'll always know where I was up to in my knitting when Michael proposed. Okay, so that's it for me. That's all the projects I have on the go at the moment. I did do a little bit more on my MKAL while I was sick, but I foolishly picked it up when I was feverish and for some reason decided that it was a good idea to get started on my probably most complicated project. And I made a mistake in the first row. So, and I was not going quickly because I was so unwell. So I knit one row, put it down, had some lunch, came back and realized that I had done it completely wrong and spent the remainder of the afternoon unpicking that one very long row. So the net progress for that sick day was 0. So I put it down after that, but I will pick it up again because I'm very keen to wear it through the cooler weather that we're starting to get here in autumn. Speaking of autumn, I was thinking, I was inspired to make a video which is about a seasonal video for the Southern Hemisphere, because I love watching the different seasonal inspirational videos that different creators put out, but of course they're always for seasons which are opposite to mine, being located down in the Southern Hemisphere. So I wondered if maybe I could put together a knitspiration, knit fit inspo type video for autumn. What do you guys think? I was thinking maybe like a pattern roundup, but I think it's too late now. We're like midway through the season and it takes me a couple months to knit up a project. So if I were to do a pattern roundup, I think it would have to be in preparation for the next season. But I don't know, what do you guys think? Would you be interested in seeing a autumn knit fit inspo video from the perspective of a warm weather knitter? I'm keen to make it, but I'm not sure if it suits all of you since there's so many of you in different climates and different locations around the world. So I'd love for you to let me know if that's the sort of thing that you would be interested in watching. Because even though the seasonal videos aren't directly relevant to me, I still like watching them and seeing the different things that people pick out and how they style different things for different seasons. And it just makes things a little bit more fun, doesn't it, if you have a theme that you're dressing to in a certain season. So I don't know, yeah, let me know if you think that would be a good one to watch. Okay, so thanks again for coming to visit with me. I really appreciate your time, all of your wonderful comments, and yeah, the engagement that you show on my videos. Thank you very much. So if you liked this video, it would be wonderful if you would, of course, like the video. And if you haven't yet subscribed, it would be wonderful if you would do so, so that you can see my videos as I put them out in the future. So thanks guys, I hope you've got some good knitting done. I look forward to talking to you in the next video.